I created a survey. 402 dancers responded, and I spent weeks digging into their answers. Why? Because rejections in tango shape how we invite, how we feel, and how we experience tango in general. I wanted to really understand it. Not just the numbers, but the stories behind it. Curious to see what I found out? Let's have a look together. Welcome to Good Night Tango, your channel about tango in real life. I'm Christos, I'm dancing tango for 9 years now, and for the last 4 years I'm writing about that in my blog. This video is the third video in the series of 4 videos discussing the results from the survey about rejections in tango. In the first video we saw the overall results and we discussed a little bit about them. In the second video we analyzed more specifically what influences our view of rejection, the meaning that we assign to rejection. And in this video, we're going to see what shapes our emotional reaction. What are the factors that influence our emotional reaction to rejection? In the next video and last of the series, we're going to see, in general, the rejections and our melodia experiences and some key advices maybe that come out of the whole series. So without further ado, we're going to continue by looking at the different emotional reactions and the analysis that we did based on them. The question, just to remind you, was after being refused the dance, how do you feel? Usually feel it's indifferent, disappointed, embarrassed, rejected, or angry. And there was also an option for other, where people could write in free text their opinion, but there were very few responses on that. So basically, the question was asked both for rejected by a known and an unknown dancer. And here in the first slide, we can see what is the reaction that we have in terms of being rejected by a known dancer. And here is how do we react when we are rejected by an unknown dancer. What we can see is, first of all, the difference between the views of disappointed and rejected, the emotions of disappointment and rejected. When we are rejected by an unknown dancer, we feel less disappointment. There are less people that report disappointment, less people that report being rejected. And there is an obvious increase in the people that are feeling indifferent. So people are feeling more indifferent when they are rejected by an unknown dancer, but they feel less rejected and less disappointed. Now, the difference between the two answers, being from the known or the unknown dancer, is statistically significant based on the test that I did, which means that there is a correlation between the dancer that rejects us and our emotional reaction. So the fact that the dancer that, the familiarity with the dancer actually affects how we respond emotionally. I also try to analyze what happens in terms of some demographic variables that we had. So, for example, if the gender or if our experience or if our role influences, for example, our emotional reactions. And based on this analysis, there were no relations identified, no correlations identified. No test that I ran between these variables came up as statistically significant. So I will not go into detail to show you how this works and all these different cases, because obviously we won't learn something more. Just as an example, you can see that the difference, for example, in the reaction between female and male dancers is not really much. It's pretty much the same. The 3 most common reactions and the percentages are pretty much close to each other. So there's no big difference in terms of the gender. Similarly, there was no difference in the responses that we had from grouping in terms of experience, in terms of age and other factors, demographic factors. So after having checked the demographic factors, the next thing that I wanted to check, which might influence our emotional reaction, is the view of rejection and how it relates with our emotional reaction. In order to do the analysis, I excluded from the answers the answers of other, which are quite diverse and very low amount of people that responded with other. And also, in order to have valid analysis, valid tests that I could execute, I also grouped the answers of rejected, embarrassed, and angry, these three kind of answers that we had, possibilities that we had, into one, because there were very few answers in all these three cases. They are pretty much all kind of negative experiences, negative emotions. So I thought it would be better if I group them together in order to have a better test and a valid test run throughout the analysis. So basically, I group together the emotional reaction of being angry, embarrassed, or rejected, which is basically all three emotional reactions that I will have if you don't subscribe to this channel right now. What are you waiting for? Go and do it now. Let's continue then to the emotional reaction based on the view from an unknown dancer. We can see the different graphs here. So first of all, to say that all the views, when cross-referenced with the different emotional reactions, gave a statistical significant difference, a statistical significant result, which means that they all kind of correlate with our emotional reaction. The only one that didn't have this kind of statistical significant outcome is the personal view, which means that there was no correlation between the view of looking at the rejection as personal and our emotional reactions. Now, that is why I highlighted that here. Now, the other thing that we can see is that regardless of the view, pretty much all views have the same kind of disappointed people. I mean, the percentage of people that are disappointed, feeling disappointed with all the kind of views are pretty much equal. We can see there is a big difference in the people in the reaction of indifference from the level to nothing as the two kind of extreme different views. And you can see that there is a quite big increase of the indifference when we see the rejection as meaning nothing. The biggest actual difference, if we compare the two most common views that were reported, in the first video we saw that the most common views were situational and selective. So either we see it as a matter of, okay, it didn't happen because maybe they don't like the music, they are tired, or whatever else. And the selective is that because they are selective, they dance only with a specific group of friends and so on. So the difference between these most common views, you can see it's quite big in terms of the indifference. When we see it as situational, we obviously have a more indifferent reaction to that. The same also we can see in terms of the negative emotions, in terms of the angry, embarrassment, and rejected. These are quite reduced, quite a lot of reduced, as you can see. If you compare the level view, if we see rejection as a matter of our level and our dance skills, and compared to nothing, meaning nothing, a lot of reduce. And again, between the two most common answers, you can see the most common views, the selective and situational. There is a big difference also, a big drop in the emotional reaction of being embarrassed, dejected, or angry from the selective to the situational view. So that's what we see in this in terms of the unknown dancers. The image in terms of the known dancers is slightly different, as you can see. First of all, we can see that the views of level and personal, which means that we view the rejection as a matter of our level or as a matter of our personality. They don't want to dance with us specifically. They kind of have the same emotional mix that we see. Similar patterns here in the emotional reactions. Again, there's a big drop from looking the rejection as a matter of our level to not looking at it as meaning something. You can see the actual percentages here. And now if we look all the different results that we saw together, all the different graphs that we saw before together group, so that we can compare also what's the difference between the view and the known and unknown dancer. We can see that for all the views, the difference between the known and unknown dancer is that we are a little bit more indifferent in terms of the unknown dancer, something that we saw in the general graph as well, a little bit more disappointed from the known dancer when we are rejected from a known dancer. So there is this kind of balance there. The other thing that we can observe also is that views of level, personal, and selective, which mean that we are rejected because of our level, because we feel that they don't want to dance with us specifically, or because they are very selective, have a percentage of about 25%, if I can say an average 25 to 30% of people that react with a kind of negative emotion. They are embarrassed, rejected, or angry. So it's quite a high amount of people, high percentage of people, but this drops a lot when people see the rejection as meaning nothing or as being situational. You can see the level, it drops to around 10% over here. So basically we can see that the views of situational and nothing reduce a lot feeling the negative feelings of being rejected, embarrassed, or angry. Now, the other factor that I wanted also to analyze was not only the views, but also the question about how personally do we take rejection. In this case, we had a question that was answered in a scale of 1 to 5, and I wanted to see the relation, the correlations, if there are any correlations between how personally do we take rejection and our emotional reactions. In this case, the answer, the question about how personally do we take rejection was asked also again 2 times, both for a known and unknown dancer. So I could compare the feelings of taking personal the rejection with the emotional reaction from a known dancer and a known dancer respectively. So we have a better analysis in this case. So from an unknown dancer, we can see here I grouped the responses in terms of the how personal do we take rejection. The low group that you see here, just a minute, the low group that you see here is the people that responded with 1 and 2 in the scale of how personal do they take rejection. The medium is the number 3 and the high is number 4 and 5. So obviously these are the number of people that are responded. You can see that there's a lot less people that responded with high personal, taking very personal the rejection. But you can see also that when we look at this big column in the low, we don't see a very big amount of people that feel angry, rejected, or embarrassed. But this, then when we look at the column of the high rejected and the medium rejected, I mean, personally taking very personally the rejection, this reaction of angry, embarrassed, rejected is a lot more than what we see in the low personally taking the rejection. Now, if we look at the same graph for the known dancer being rejected by known dancer, we can see there is a shift already, more answers. We already know that from the previous videos. More answers answered to the medium and high personally taking the rejection. But again, we see that the people that are feeling angry, embarrassed, or rejected mostly are grouped and are found in the people that are taking rejection personally, which I guess it is kind of natural. We could expect that. Now, if we look, the results that we had before, but in terms of percentages and not only in terms of amount of people that that answered, we can see that, for example, the emotional reaction of disappointment based on the how personal do we take rejection follows a trajectory which is reducing the feeling of disappointment the more that we are feeling, the more that we take it personally. So the more personal you take rejection, the less disappointed you feel. A similar approach and an even bigger decline we can see in terms of the indifference, both from rejected by a known and unknown dancer. So we see similar patterns in both cases. But when we are the emotional reaction of angry, rejected, and embarrassed, you can see that both cases the percentage of people that are angry, embarrassed, and rejected is increasing the more personally we take rejection. So the tip here is, if you want to feel less disappointed, take rejection personally. You will probably feel angry, embarrassed, rejected, but disappointed, no way. So what are the key takeaways from this discussion? Before we go into the key takeaways, I want to let you know that if you want, and if you like the presentation here, and if you want to get the presentation for free, you can sign up in a link in the description, and you can get the presentation for free after the end of the fourth video, after the fourth video is published. So you can sign up, and once the fourth video is published, an email will be sent to you, and you will get the whole presentation so that you can keep it and review it and come back to it later on again and again. So what are the key takeaways from this analysis in terms of the emotional reactions? First of all, our emotional reactions differs depending on our familiarity with the person that rejects us. We have seen that we feel more disappointed and less indifferent when rejections come from a known dancer. Okay. Also, we saw that there is no demographic trait or characteristic that affect our emotional reaction, so there is no difference between our ages, our genders, our experiences, or our roles in terms of how we respond emotionally to rejection. Also, what is the main factor in our emotional reaction is our view for rejection. We have seen that when we don't have any meaning, we don't assign any meaning to rejection, then we are more indifferent. When we view the rejection as a matter of our level or a matter of the other person being selective, then we tend to increase the feelings of rejection and embarrassment. Also, we saw that when we don't see the rejection as meaning nothing, when we see it as situational or selective, we have to have bigger difference in these cases between the disappointment and difference between known and unknown dancers. So the effect of the familiarity with the dancer in these cases plays a bigger role in terms of the reaction, the difference reaction between disappointment and indifference. Now, we also saw that how personal do we take rejection affects our emotional reaction. The more personal we take rejection, the more possible it is that we are going to feel embarrassed, rejected, or angry. The less personal we take rejection, the more possible it is that we will be disappointed or probably indifferent. Similar patterns also, we see that we are following similar patterns of emotional reaction in terms of how personally do we take rejection, either it is from a known dancer or from an unknown dancer. So there is no difference in our emotional reactions if the rejection comes from a known or unknown dancer in this case. So that's it for now. I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something, and don't miss the next one where we discuss about the our milonga experience in rejection. And also don't forget to subscribe to the video and to the channel, and also get the link for the presentation. And finally, don't forget to move forward both in the dance floor and in your life. Ciao!